Assalamu alaikum. Are we live? Can anyone tell me? I kind of forgot how I did this the first time around, so I'm not sure at all. No, I am live, right? Okay, but I can't see the chat, so bear with me. Teething issues, right? Okay, I can see someone said Assalamu alaikum. I'm okay. You can hear me? Everyone can hear me? Give me some positive feedback, please. Okay, that's a salam. But can you hear me is the question. Yes, fantastico. Right, let's get stuck into this. So, what is all this? Thank you, everyone. What is all this controversy about? I was actually planning to do, and I will do a live. Volume is too low. Okay, thank you. That's good. This feedback is good because we really don't know what we're doing. Is volume better? How are we supposed to? Good. Okay, now I can hear myself. Volume better now? Can you hear me now? I'm right on the microphone, so I'm worried if you can't. Don't know if there's anything else I could do about that volume. It's kind of high. Yes, no? Volume good? Volume still low? Talk to me, people. We can hear you. Hey, yeah, but is it good? Okay. Yes, inshallah, great. I don't think there's much else I could do, to be honest, with the volume. I forgot to say, I was coming out with excuses as to, lack of content and everything, and I did mention, Barakallahu feekum. I did mention that there was a lot of traveling, but a bigger problem is that I've had, and anyone, which is practically everyone, who has their own IT system, be it a computer, laptop, whatever, wiped out 3 times in a couple of years. The last time was only last week. A Kurdish brother, local Kurdish brother, may Allah reward him, managed to help recuperate much of my saved work, but then we had to install programs again, and then apps, and then configure them. And even now, I didn't have Microsoft Word, which is what I used to, put my notes on. Because when you've got Arabic, especially in ayat, in Notepad, it doesn't work. You need to have them formatted. I do color-coded ayat and color-coded embolden the translation, the referencing, everything. You want, and sallallahu alaihi wasallam and all the salawat. You want them all, and I couldn't do that. Notepad is a bit difficult. And I only just 20 minutes ago got my Microsoft Word, and even then, it's not opening all the different versions, and it's an absolute nightmare. It's fun. I think it's malicious. I have had some malicious attacks. I know what ethical hacking is from past history. I think this was unethical hacking. So it's still, things aren't still where I want them to be in terms of formatting and style and so on and so forth. But we're getting there. Next Thursday, inshallah, we will transition to a different platform and see if we can have some guests, and we will cover some issues there. Anyway, I should really switch off my... Yeah, I haven't actually got a title for my stream. Someone just said, it's not even something I put in. No time. Essentially, I had no time to put in a title, no time to put in a screenshot. I just, not screenshot, thumbnail, because I only just managed to sit down, and I haven't even seen all the response. Anyway, let's cut to the chase. What is going on? I will show you what's going on. Watch this.
I called my dog Muhammad once, and he gave me like a wink.
What is this? What'd you say?
Are you serious? I'm sorry.
Yo, what's up, man? What's your name, bro?
Julian.
Julian. Okay, Wahab. Nice to meet you, man. What's up? You ran here or what?
Yeah. No, I was just at the beach, and I just had some shrimp.
Huh?
Oh, okay, nice. So why are you running, though?
Oh, no, I just got into Islam.
Oh, you just got into Islam?
Yeah.
Okay, nice. So when did that happen?
Just recently.
Okay, why you still got a cross on your neck?
Yeah, well, I kind of follow both.
Okay.
Allah the Messiah, right?
What? Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was a debate on TikTok. They were like, is Jesus the Messiah, or is he just the son of God, or is he a prophet? But it says in the Quran, it's like around page 20 or something. It says Allah the Messiah. So
No. We don't say. Yeah.
English translation.
Yeah. It's right here. If you want to open up, yeah, you could.
I can probably pull it up.
Yeah.
Jesus is the Messiah.
I don't know, actually. I'm not. It was on my phone. I don't know if I...
No worries. So we'll inform you that Allah is not the Messiah. Allah sent the Messiah.
Allah sent the
You get what I'm trying to say? Because the thing is, on this earth, if you see God, it's already over.
Yeah.
You get what I'm trying to say? The whole idea is being tested by God without seeing Him.
Because I do think because I called my dog Muhammad once, and he gave me like a wink.
What'd you say? What'd you say?
Are you serious? I'm sorry. I didn't know.
Get out of here, bro.
I didn't know.
Get out of here, bro. Hey, get out. Hey, that's it.
On some bullshit. Dog inside.
The fuck is it? Hey, get out of here, bro. Bounce. Fuck is Beanie, dude. Who the fuck you think you're talking to, bro?
Okay, that was it. I don't think we need to play it again, but if anyone asks, we can reference it again. So I want to tackle this in a number of ways. I want to talk about what you saw and then the reactions from Muslims. And I've been generous when I'm saying Muslims. Some reactions came from, I'm talking about the bad reactions. Of course, sensible people above a certain age, people who've had families, people who've studied and lived in Islamic societies. They will, anyone with any serious knowledge, any people of piety who attach themselves to the Quran, who are engaged in actual learning and teaching, or struggling, or in the path of jihad, etc., dealing with trauma, helping alleviate suffering of the ummah, whatever it might be, people who've lived real lives other than the toilet, that is social media, they will see this as absolutely despicable. I responded in a tweet where I said as much. First of all, there is an element that this could be a setup, a small setup. I don't believe that is the case, but it's possible. We see this particularly in American Islamic, what would you call them, social experiment type things. Not so much in the UK. I'm not saying UK is better, but generally. But this is, you do see these placards of Muslims in the middle of a square saying, "Hug me, I'm a Muslim." What a pervert. And then he's waiting for all these sisters, non-Muslim women to hug him and that kind of stuff. And you see these kind of interactions and they almost look like they're made for the camera, made for clickbait, made for social media, for TikTok and Instagram, where there'll be some interaction and, pretending to throw punches or actually throw punches, and you get the same, I guess, in the UK at Speaker's Corner. But that is a bit of a clown show anyway, at the best of times. But, so there's been some reaction. There's reaction from the takfiri types, the enemies of Ahl Sunnah, those given to grave worship and so on, and who don't like our takes anyway, even if ordinarily they might actually approve of our takes in this particular regard. And then you get just ignoramuses. Now, generally, we shouldn't lower ourselves, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, to listen to everyone that may bark. But from those who brought actual, possible, substantial shubahat, doubts because they have a semblance, they look like they're the truth, but they're not. They are worth addressing. So some people have bought some hadith, some people have bought, mentioned the work of Ibn Taymiyyah, Sarim al-Maslul, and other such statements. But anyway, I don't need to play it again. You can see this unless it's requested. But essentially, you've got a guy who walks up to a DAWAH stall, apparently a non-Muslim, but claiming to be a Muslim or coming towards Islam. The brother points out, saying that, and he says, the Muslim brother, I am the one, he calls himself. And that's the first point I want to make. This person is a da'iyah. He's calling himself, he's saying that he's attached to Islam. He's representing the religion of Islam. He's not from the common people. In fact, I think he is from the common people, a common person who's given da'wah, as opposed to someone who's maybe studied. But anyway, he's unqualified and competent. But anyway, he's given da'wah, which, okay, alhamdulillah, if you're in the West and we want to justify our existence, it's a good thing to invite. But, there's certain rule sets and skill sets that come with the territory. So he sees this non-Muslim approach him, and he says he's into Islam, or he thinks he's a Muslim. And then the bro points out, but you've got a cross. And he says, because, and then he says some crazy statements that he's read that in the Quran, and he cites page 20, that Allah and the Messiah is the same thing. So immediately, for those of us who've given dawah, of engaging with the world as we have it now in the West, particularly, perhaps even in the Muslim world, you'll find kinds of crazies. But in the non-Muslim West, predominantly non-Muslim West, I should say, the crazies are everywhere. In terms of dawah stalls, I've authored actually the content creator for many literature and brochures and pamphlets, unaccredited, of course. We don't wanted to keep my anonymity. Published in hundreds of thousands in English, French, Spanish, Russian, Bosnian and Albanian, to my recollection, back in the day. So we know what happens. We know people can come, right? So it's not at all crazy to have someone who's in a transitional phase, one foot in Christianity, one foot in Islam. It's not inconceivable that this person, and I don't want to speak out of turn, he may be a bit mentally unwell, suffering some kind of addiction, he especially when they come out with this absolutely crazy statements. It wasn't a statement of a Christian da'i. It could have potentially went that way, a missionary, where he was saying, I came with the Quran and I found out that, the Prophet Muhammad or the Quran, Ya Allah speaks about Jesus being the Son of God and that you should follow him. And the traditional doubts. It wasn't like that. He just made some really nonsensical statements initially. And then what did he say? What was the thing that caused? And the brother said a nice thing, that no, if you see someone, you can't be God. God is unseen. That's the whole point. That was a very smart thing to say. Then he said he thinks he's a Muslim, and the brother said to him, really? And he said, yeah, because I said to my dog, whatever that means. Could it mean a friend, like dog, DAWD, or could it mean a pet? Unclear. I said to my dog, I called him. He said, I called my dog Muhammad and he winked at me. And then before anything else, the brothers attack him. They're effing and blinding. There are women and children everywhere. They throw him around. He's screaming, protesting his innocence, kind of. He's saying, I'm sorry. I didn't understand. Sorry, I didn't know. I'll play it again at the end, just in case people aren't familiar with it or haven't seen it repeatedly. And the brother said, F you, F this, mother effer and whatever, and then they threw his beanie away. And he's still protesting. He's not coming back with the traditional Islamophobic stuff, saying, this shows you Muslims alike and everything. He just said, I'm sorry, I didn't, whatever. So, now listen, so that's basically me repeating what was said. Now let's lay out the potential scenarios and the proofs that people have brought against our criticizing this. First of all, subhanAllah, this person potentially could be an Islamophobe, potentially, just by, in terms of what is possible in the world. Or he could be who he claimed to be, which I'm inclined to believe is the case, based on his speech and whatnot, which is he's just an ignorant person, doesn't have a clue, doesn't know the difference between Christianity and Islam, and for a non-Muslim, a dog, if it is an animal, is man's best friend. It's not a najis creature like it is for us, and they will name them with names of endearment. But for a Muslim, this is blasphemous if this person was indeed intending blasphemy. The question is, we simply don't know. Before he wasn't given a chance to explain to what he meant. He was cut off half sentence. People have said, how would you have responded? The first thing I would have done is listen. I've had worse than this, and I've seen scholars respond to much worse than this, and even shahadas follow when you listen to what the person will say. Anyway, so the guy said, so what could he potentially have said? We just don't know, and this is the problem. We don't know what he intended to say. As soon as he said, I said to my dog, whatever that meant, I called my dog. He said, I called my dog Muhammad, and he winked. Now, canines don't wink as far as I know. Canines and cats and animals don't wink, but human beings do. So that suggests it was a kind of human being. But anyway, he said, I said to my dog, I called my dog, He said, I called my dog Muhammad, and it winked. And at that point, the brothers attacked him, or big brother picked him up, threw him around. And immediately he was saying, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Okay, so what could he have continued to say? Now, this is entirely speculation. He could have went on to say, yeah, I said to my dog, Muhammad, and he winked at me. And I thought, yo, are you like a Muslim? Why are you winking? And he goes, because I'm also was thinking of addressing you as Muhammad. Why? You've been reading the Quran? Yeah, I've been reading the Quran. Oh, man, yeah, that stuff is, yeah. That could be one thing. Or it could potentially be, although possible but not plausible, I believe. He could have said, I called my dog Muhammad, he winked at me, and I said, why are you winking? He said, oh, because he's a false prophet. Jesus Christ is the truth. Right. Could have been like that. Or because my dog winked at me, and he said, and I understood from this that this man is a such and such, and then he maybe started slandering Muhammad, or smearing Muhammad, or blaspheming. I doubt that's the case. The dynamics of the conversation didn't suggest that. The immediate reaction, didn't suggest that. But the fact of the matter is, we don't know which da'iyah, which person of knowledge and piety in his right mind, when you're manning a dawah stall and a non-Muslim comes to you and women and children are walking around, quietly he's asking you is to record on camera, and they thought it's a good freaking idea to upload this disgusting spectacle, thinks that before even listening to what he has to say, you attack him. This isn't piety. This isn't from Islam. No alim in his right mind, no man of piety in his right mind, mujtahid, mujahid, muqallid, of any shape or form, who's lived amongst Muslims, lived in Islamic society, studied the deen, has a fear of Allah, has raised children, has been through marriages and divorces, treats people like this. You listen to what the man has to say, for God's sake. That's one thing. If he came out with some kufr, then you correct him, because this is a teaching moment. You never, and this is a point, it's never, the da'wah in public is never about the person in front of you if you're recording it. If it's private, of course, it's between you and the person. But if you're recording it, if it's for posterity, if it's for the public domain, if it's going to be tweets, your tweets are receipts, and your TikToks are not just something ad hoc, it's going to be there in the ether forever, potentially, right? So this is a proof for you or a proof against you. What are you teaching the people? What would be so difficult? What would be so problematic in letting him finish his sentence and saying, look, I understand what you're saying, but do you mean an animal dog, or did you mean your friend dog? And then if he explains, I meant my dog, my pet dog. Well, we don't call our dogs by names of human beings, let alone names of the Prophet. What do you know about the Prophet Muhammad? Clearly he doesn't know jack, right? Because he's thinking he's saying the Messiah and Allah is the same thing. It's clear from, to me anyway, my personal interaction, this person is just some kid, could be on something, doesn't know his backside from his elbow, certainly isn't well versed, certainly didn't make a concrete argument for a belief system outside of Islam, or to prove that he was cognizant of what he was saying about Islam. And so that's really all there is to say about that, simply because we don't know. We weren't given any indication. We weren't given a chance to understand what happened after. And then all we got was, that's regards to how that person, let's assume he was a sincere person looking for the truth. He's certainly been put off. That's assuming that's him, right? Assuming he came inquiring about Islam. Let's say he's an Islamophobe. Tayyib, what would have been so problematic with correcting his Islamophobia? Let's say he came and he started insulting Muhammad, and you say, okay, what are you trying? Let's say he's a Christian, for example, sake of argument. Let's say he was a Christian missionary, and they can be quite nasty, and he brought out what he brought out, and then you say, for the benefit of your audience, because you're going to post this on your Instagram and your TikTok, and you say, and you believe that this is what Jesus Christ, would have encouraged you, that you mock someone, something beloved to someone. How would you like if I called your mother a dog, your father a dog? And you think as a Muslim, I'm a Muslim, we're calling to Allah and his prophets, God and his prophets, Jesus being one of them, and we respect his mother Mary. We believe in her immaculate conception of a Messiah to the children of Israel, and he will come back and he will fight the Antichrist. And you know this about us, but you're trying to get some reaction out of me by calling our prophet, whether you believe it or not, he's our prophet, and you call him a dog, or you address a dog with the name of our messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is this what you call calling to Islam? You give a teaching moment for people, right? For your audience. It would humiliate him. And wallahi, it's not as if we who've been in the field for some years haven't had Islamophobes, nasty Islamophobes, take shahada out of our hands. Some of them are famous. You've got your Gary Miller back in the day, to Yusuf Estes, to far right nationalists in the Netherlands, in Germany, who've taken shahada, neo-Nazis taken shahada after they would attack Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam by name, after they would mock the Quran, desecrate it. But then when we had, the character from the Four Lions, the Barry, mashallah brother, that one, he's based on a real character from the Northeast, not too far from me. A Geordie who became Muslim. He used to be BNP, British National Party, neo-Nazi. Used to attack Muslims. But the Muslims had sabr with him. They would give dawah with him. You can imagine the kind of filth he would spew out from him. Pakis go home and N-word and all that kind of stuff. And brothers had sabr with him, and he took shahada eventually. And he married a sister, an Asian sister, and he passed away. He died as a Muslim upon Islam not too long, a few years ago. And he was one of these Islamophobic racists. Proper neo-Nazi, card-carrying neo-Nazi. People can change. People can change. How many an enemy of Allah actually became a sword of Allah, or upon in the ranks of the believers? Even this word dog, it reminds me, and we're going to talk about the Mongols on Thursday, that when the Mongols had their yoke over the Muslims, one of the Mongol Khans said to one of the Muslim scholars after they desecrated the mosques and genocided so many Muslims. We're talking historians saying the many millions, largest human acts of genocide in pre-modern history. So from the survivors of the ulama class were obviously singled out for execution and torture. The Mongol Khan said to him, "You Muslims are dogs." He said this in public in his court. "You Muslims are dogs." What was the scholar's response? He said, "Yes, we would be dogs were it not for this Islam that we have." Look at the bravery. It was understood because unlike some of the people who responded in the opposite way we would hope to this clip, that Mongol Khan was smart enough to understand that this Muslim is telling me I'm a dog, because he said, "Yes, we would be dogs were it not for this Islam." Meaning, you Mongol Khan who don't have Islam, you're the dog. And eventually, that Khan, he's one of many. He was a prince amongst the Mongols. He became a Muslim himself. He reflected upon the steadfastness and honesty and bravery and stoicism of this person who he could have killed at the click of his fingers or a nod of his head, and instead he got a lesson. So subhanAllah, it's not as if this is not a known. Again, we're talking about the worst case scenario. I'm going to get into the fiqh of dealing with the blasphemy as well in a second or shortly. So worst case scenario, he's a blasphemer. You could correct him, so you teach your audience the response to someone who insults your Nabi. And we could go into, but I'm not going to go into so many ayat and ahadith. I mean, we can maybe mention one thing. Ibn Taymiyyah, whose name has been invoked, the great Damascene Mamluk era scholar, he mentioned that the qualities of the da'i, the caller to Islam, or those who enjoining the good and forbidding the evil, they must be three. First, you must have knowledge before you do your action, before you call, before you enjoin the good. First condition is to have knowledge. Second is to be gentle while you're doing it. And third is to be patient as regards to the results. And he quotes amongst his copious proofs the ayah in Surah Luqman, where Luqman says to his son, "Ya bunayya aqim as-salat," "O my son, establish your prayers. Wa'mur bil ma'ruf wanha 'anil munkar," and enjoin the good and forbid the evil. Wasbir ala ma asabak, and bear patiently with what you will endure. And that's what and Ibn Taymiyyah says, وَلَا بُدْ أَيْضًا أَنْ يَكُونَ حَلِيمًا صُبُورًا عَلَى الْأَذَى. And it is mandatory, it is a must also that you are forbearing and patient upon your being tested, chastised, vexed, persecuted, if you like. This is from the qualities of the da'iyah. What kind of a person, I have to say, and people say, "Oh, brother, advise privately." look, if this person, if people are from the commoners, I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the chat yet. I will once I get through a bit of a rant, if you can bear with me. If we're dealing with the commoners, yeah, when I say this guy is a commoner, but I mean like, someone from the street, okay, yeah, you forgive, you say, that was an uncle, he didn't know what he was doing, or that little kid, he was just a bit jahil and he's embarrassed us, I'll talk to him privately. That's one thing. But when you step up to represent the religion of Allah, when you are taking on the mantle of an ambassador for the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then you have to control yourself. If you can't even let yourself hear a sentence, hear a man finish a sentence, and you are there for this very purpose, then you're not qualified to be speaking. You're not qualified to be on that dawah stall. It's not just for everyone. This is the mission. This is a mission. The whole and all the people around it. I mean, okay, let's jump ahead now. Let's mix and match, because none of this is prepared or whatever. Just so hopefully I'll try to remember everything. Just imagine now you have all of the people, and I don't need to speak to the environment, the Islamophobia, rampant Islamophobia, thanks to whether people, billionaires or presidents or the far right or whoever it may be. And the deviants, Ahlul Bidah, also doing us a bad disservice. And then there's a munafiqeen. Yes, we have munafiqeen, pretenders, feigning Islam but destroying it from within while outwardly pretending to be amongst us. You're dealing with all of this, and then put it all out, and all that is already on the scales. But then you've got people who just don't know, because they're not Muslims, walking around, husbands with their wives, boyfriends and girlfriends and kids, maybe even some tourists all over. What do they see? They see a big brown beaded man with a skull cap, clearly in some kind of Islamic attire, beat the crap out of, or manhandle and ragdoll a scrawny, skinny kid a third of his weight. And as soon as they grab hold of him, they can hear him scream, "I'm sorry, I didn't know." They throw him around, and then what? They say, "F the mother, F her, this, F you, F that," in front of children. This is dawah now? This is how we call to Islam? And all the while he's protesting, I didn't know. F you, mother, effer. I mean, what? Subhanallah, is this dawah? Any of those people now who are walking around, what they're going to think? They're going to think, let's say they intended to go to that stall to learn about Islam. Would you think they're going to do that now? Do you think a non-Muslim who sees a big guy beat, manhandle and bully a smaller person who's inquiring about Islam, even if it was provoked, even if it was provoked, do you think these people, the onlookers now, are going to think, they're not going to think twice about approaching that dawah stall? Yeah, I was going to go and ask him about Islam and the Quran and Muhammad and Palestine, but if maybe I'll say the wrong thing. No way I'm going to. Well, those of us who are a bit, been around the block, people, non-Muslims are too scared even to come to a masjid. A non-Muslim woman is scared often to approach a sister in hijab and niqab. Non-Muslims are even scared to approach people of colour, let alone if they're practicing wearing thobes and skull caps and big beards, And what is this saying? This is saying that might is right, that if you are bigger and stronger and you can intimidate and frighten someone, it's good. What is the excuse that the kuffar, the Israelis, the Zionists use for their genocide? When they, essentially the excuse is we can. Why did they commit genocide? Why is there so much disproportionate reaction to the alleged provocation of October 7? Well, let's say it is a provocation. That's what they will say. It's because they can. They can get away with it. That's why they do it. We're saying it's the same thing. I will beat you up. I will manhandle you. I will throw you around. I will F and blank because I can. And there ain't nothing you can do about it. Tayyib, imagine if it was the roles are reversed. Imagine there's some brothers and they're a bit meek, or some sisters at a dawah stall. And I can tell you this happened actually once. Some sisters were at a dawah stall with brothers. I'm hoping for their sake they were related back in the day in London. And some guys came up to them and they started spilling alcohol on the sisters. Some of them went and got condoms, filled their beer, put beer in the condom and started throwing them, like water bombs on the sisters. And they were outnumbered. And, imagine now it's almost like you're encouraging people who, because, okay, that brother looks like, or it gives the impression he can throw down. Maybe you'll find some non-Muslims who feel, oh, if that's how you are, okay, then I'll rock up to the next dawah stall. And we've seen this happen, and you can even see online where brothers who are, let's say, more diminutive, shall we say, than the Islamophobe, actual bona fide Islamophobes, and they can't fight back. And you don't necessarily blame them, because you fight a battle you can win. What's the point in getting your neck broken or getting shot out or getting imprisoned, and then you leave your, family, dependents without you, Sometimes, sometimes it's better to walk away, to fight another day. And other times, if you think you can handle your business, then you handle your business. But in America, increasingly in the UK, but not quite yet, in America, people can pull out a gun. You manhandle someone, and they shoot to respond. The law will be on their side. Well, he grabbed me, he had a hold of me. And I know this all too well personally, and we can get into this in time. And here knives are a big thing. People carry knives, and eventually, because the country is degenerating and descending into to destroyed economy and everything else, people will eventually move on to guns. We don't want that to be the case, but that's how crime is following that path. It's regressing to that level. So yeah, anyone who's walking around, they will think, okay, I don't want to go anywhere near this. What kind of dawah is this? Honestly, subhanallah. And before anyone says, again, this is in the public domain. I know people don't like it when Muslims talk about other Muslims, but if it's in the public domain, the religion doesn't belong to your dad. I'm sorry, the fanboys and fangirls. The religion doesn't belong to your dad. If your social media celebrity who you idolize and hero worship, if he does something stupid in the name of Islam, then we who are adherents to this religion have every right to call it out, whether you like it or not. Yes, sometimes you can reach out to someone personally, privately, advise them. I did DM him, by the way. I got no response after the fact, but even so, after I'd already criticized it. But even so, I did call a brother who was in that crowd, the Dawah, not on the video, but in that, Dawah club crowd. I'm not one of them, but we know what we're talking about, right? Because this guy was seen having a dinner with some of those of his associates, and he said, no, I don't know him. So I did try. I would have responded to him, and I would have spoken to him with equal harshness or equal emotion that I'm given now, because it's not the religion is not his or my plaything or your plaything. It belongs to Allah. We are its representatives, so we have to behave ourselves when we're presenting this religion. Our job is not to drive people into the fire, but to bring them into paradise. And again, this is something, it's shocking almost that we have to defend our critique of this, because it's so well known amongst people who are a bit mature, who are a bit knowledgeable. It just shouldn't even need to be said. It doesn't bear thinking about. And by the way, we kind of mentioned whether this person is an actual Islamophobe or not, both scenarios. Let's say he is an Islamophobe. Look at the stupidity people have come out with, many of them takfiris, and they come out with the standard thing that, where's your ghairah for the messenger? If this was this shows that you people don't love the prophet. The guy loved the prophet. No. I was around at the time when I'm sure many others were as well. It was not long ago, the cartoon controversy. You had two types of reaction. You have the reaction of the ghawgha, the rabble, the common people, and then you have the reaction of the people who were considerate, Muslims with a bit of brains, scholars essentially, and those who try to attach themselves to scholars and knowledge. So during that time, you had Muslims died, I think at least 20 people, in places like Afghanistan, in Syria. Why? Because the rabble roused the rabble to go and march on anything that was Western. So I think a Norwegian health worker or NGO worker, male or female, can't remember, was killed. In Syria, Bastard al-Assad, mass murderer, genocide, apostate that he is, encouraged the Sunnis, ironically, to go on, march on the Danish embassy, etc. And, people got shot and whatever because the security guards were trying to protect their staff and so on. So Muslims died. That was one reaction. Okay, so I was commissioned a project. I was in Saudi Arabia at the time. And of course, anyone who knows anything about religion knows that, we know from the Prophet how he would deal with personal insults. Yes, there is a difference if you are responding to someone insulting him and how he, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, would respond to personal insults. Because he set the example for us. So when the Bedouin would pull at his shirt, or the Arab, and pull at his shirt, the Prophet gave him his shirt. When he had the entrails of animals thrown upon his back and his daughter, screamed out and insulted the enemy, the Quraysh, the Prophet told her, just say, have sabr and in a narration say wa alaik, don't repeat what they say, just saying upon you is the same. And he made dua against them, and they got their comeuppance when, and this is important, on the field of jihad, in the battlefield. The harbi, the warrior of the disbeliever, got to see the justice meted out against him by the swords of the believers on the battlefield. Pause that. We're going to get back to that. So we know how the Prophet dealt with it. But then people say, okay, but look, that's a Prophet. How did the companions deal with it? Well, we know. Sometimes the companions there were some sanctioned assassinations when the Prophet was their leader, or when the Prophet had, broke away from the Quraysh. There were some sanctioned assassinations, executions. There was some, that happened, in and between and prior to actual major battles. So we'll say several things about this. First of all, everyone that was killed by the hand of the Prophet, or through his command, I should say, on the orders and at the approval and what's the word I'm looking for? Silent approval. I forgot the word. English word escapes me. Either way, at the behest of the Prophet, was done with certainty that they deserved it, because the Prophet ﷺ did not speak from desire. He spoke from revelation, and he knew someone to be his enemy, an enemy of Allah. And so when their death came to them, their death was warranted. The Prophet was not an oppressor. He did not speak of his own desires. He did not second guess. He would only commission the execution, whether as an act of punishment, the had, the hudud, or in the field of jihad, because the enemy deserved it, and they were the enemies of Allah and His Messenger. That's the first thing. Now this guy who was manhandled and thrown around and his beanie was confiscated, how do you know with certainty he intended to slander the Prophet and blaspheme the Prophet? Do you have any actual concrete proof other than your knee-jerk reaction? Because it's just word association. He heard the word Muhammad and he heard the word dog, and then word association. You're calling Muhammad a dog, or you're naming your dog a dog, a bawa woof woof dog after the Prophet. That's not how it works. In the Sharia, what would happen if someone blasphemed is that the Qadi would judge them. They would go to the judge and they would say, what did you intend by this, if it's a Muslim or non-Muslim? And if it happens in the land of a non-Muslim, there's a different rule set than happens in the land of the Muslims. Let's play a video, because this will now address one of the arguments that you hear from the idiots, the takfiris and jihadis, and their likes, the ISIS, Daeshite fanboys. They say this man is a harbi. His blood is halal. This man's blood is halal. The guy who said, if he intended to blaspheme, they say, well, his blood is halal. He's a harbi. Harb from the word war, meaning he's a combatant. This is what they claim. Our first rational, before we get into scriptural evidence against this, the rational point is, well, if his blood is halal, why wasn't his blood taken? Why did you just throw him around? Why didn't you execute him? And if his blood is halal, then so is every harbi's blood. If you believe in Dar al-Harb, the board of war, America, without even going into all the rest of the non-Muslim world, but America, as is happening in America, United States of America, if this is a land of war, Dar al-Harb, then where are the mujahideen? Why aren't they packing? Why aren't they carrying? How come Uncle Sam's soldiers are allowing the mujahideen to wander freely and give dawah on the streets, give dawah? Why are they behind enemy lines? What kind of harb is this? This is nonsense that kids who dream about being the next, Al-Qaeda leader, being the next, ISIS, warrior. This is the kind of nonsense that goes in the heads of these kids. If you want to actually do jihad, right? If you want to do the J word, at least people like Abdullah Azam and Bin Laden and all these, at least all these guys, whatever side of the spectrum of moderate or not, as the case may be, Islam they may or they may not be. At least they went there. At least Muslims went, right, to Bosnia, to Chechnya, to Afghanistan, to Kashmir, amongst the more well-known combat zones, where ulama at the time did say there's some or other semblance of legitimate jihad. And again, we can give some witness testimonies to many of these things without going into too much detail in this particular live. Okay, so go. That's when you actually go to the front line and you do that. But as for mixing and matching, which is what the people of desires do. When you want to say it's Dar al-Harb, when you want to justify, and this used to happen, stealing from people, beating up people, taxing them, as they will say, taking ghanima, what they will say, the boots, the spoils of war, by stealing from non-Muslims. Well, he's a kafir, and he's a harbi, he's Dar al-Harb, raping perhaps, murdering, beating up, well, he's a kafir, innit? He insulted our Prophet, he's a harbi. Then you're in Dar al-Harb. But when it comes to receiving treatment from the doctor, putting your kids through school, getting a license to put out a dawah stall, suddenly you have to interact all peacefully and kind with the non-Muslim authority. When you need the policeman and you see interactions, the same ignorant brother with the policeman. When you want to interact with the authority, with the popo, then you're okay. When you want to, then suddenly it's not Dar al-Harb. I'm not saying, by the way, I should say, to be fair to him, it's not that I've heard this argument from him, but argument in his favor that, yeah, these people have no hurma, they have no sanctity, these kuffar, because they are harbis. They're in Dar al-Harb and their blood is lawful. So why you come in and defending them? Again, all of this is assuming, which I don't believe is the case, that, and you have no proof that it is the case, that he actually intended blasphemy. I believe it's just his manner of speaking, and it's clear that he didn't even know the difference between a Messiah and Allah. He couldn't even, nothing he said made sense, essentially. And we've heard much worse, and we've had people convert after much worse. Now, pay attention.
أيها الشباب المسلم، أدعوكم إلى احترام الآخرين الذين لهم حق الاحترام ممن بينكم وبينهم عهد، فإن البلاد التي أنتم فيها بينكم وبينهم عهد، ولولا ذلك لقتلوكم أو أخرجوكم، فاحفظوا هذا العهد ولا تغدروا فيه، فإن الغدر من آيات المنافقين وليس من سبيل المؤمنين. أيها الإخوة، أيها الشباب، أيها المسلمون، كونوا صادقين في البيع والشراء والتأجير والاستئجار وجميع المعاملات، فإن الصدق من صفات المؤمنين، وقد أمر الله تعالى بالصدق في قول الله تعالى: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين. وحث النبي صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وسلم على الصدق فقال: عليكم بالصدق فإن الصدق يهدي إلى البر وإن البر يهدي إلى الجنة. ولا يزال الرجل يصدق ويتحرى الصدق حتى يكتب عند الله صديقا. وحذر من الكذب فقال: وإياكم والكذب فإن الكذب يهدي إلى الفجور وإن الفجور يهدي إلى النار. ولا يزال الرجل يكذب ويتحرى الكذب حتى يكتب عند الله كذابا. أيها الإخوة المسلمون، أيها الشباب، اصدقوا القول مع إخوانكم ومع من تعيشون معهم من الكفار، حتى تكونوا بذلك دعاة إلى الدين الإسلامي بالفعل والواقع. وما أكثر الذين دخلوا في دين الإسلام في أول الإسلام من أجل أخلاق المسلمين وصدقهم وصدق معاملتهم.
So that was Sheikh. Sorry, let me just do this again. That was Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, Imam Ibn Uthaymeen, one of the leaders of Ahl Sunnah as a scholar, addressing Muslims of Birmingham, back in the day, emphasizing this issue of the ahd, the covenant, the mutual covenant of security. It's an implicit or explicit. So explicit covenant is where you write down that I will abide by the laws of this land, and there'll be mutual coexistence and so on and so forth, and we won't break it. Or there's an implicit covenant when you're simply born into a non-Muslim land, or when you acquire a visa to enter it, or you have a passport. These documents just further attest to the reality of the situation being that you have an understanding that you, as the Sheikh said, they're not going to slaughter you if you're a Muslim walking on the streets of Washington, London, Philadelphia, Birmingham, Manchester, Houston, or wherever it may be. And that suggests to you that there's an understanding that we tolerate, you tolerate us. So it's not Dar al-Harb. You idiots, you juhala, who say this is a land of war. If it's a land of war, let's lead by example. Let's see you fight. Get up and take on some soldiers then. Not that I'm encouraging it, but put your own money where your dumb mouths are. It's not Dar al-Harb. You could say it's Dar al-Kufr, of course, it's land of non-Muslims, predominantly non-Muslims. And there's other terms, the scholars would say Dar al-Sulh, a board of, if you could say, treaty, in that there's mutual treaties between them and Muslim states. Or Dar al-Ahd, the abode of contracts, or, because, under, international law, there's mutual, economic agreements and border agreements and so on and so forth. But Dar al-Harb suggests it's a land where you can kill and you can take from the enemy as Muslims because they are your enemy in the state of war. This has no evidence in the Sharia. And if you believe it, then if you truly believe that it's a Dar al-Harb, any of these idiots, and they're probably living in their mum's basements in some godforsaken hovel anyway, but if they believe truly that their residency, for those who are in the West, is in the Dar al-Harb, then they should either be fighting, and if they say we can't fight, we haven't got the weapons and all this kind of nonsense, which kind of would contradict what they're saying anyway, then go either tear up your passport and do your mission, or go to some cave where DAWAH still exists on the border region between Iraq and Syria, and then at least I don't respect those people who do that, but at least they're honest to their commitment, right? That we can't live in a place of war unless we're able to execute a war against the enemy. Therefore, they go and make hijrah to ISIS territory. When back in the day, Syria was a lot easier. Now it's kind of just a few pockets between Syria and Iraq, and they tear their passports up. You see that they do this in the videos, and then they say, right, that's it. We've kissed goodbye to our Western upbringing, and now we're in a state of war. At least those people are true to their word, even if they have contradicted or belied actually what Islam actually requires of them. And then people have said, they bring up, well, what would Ibn Taymiyyah have done? Ibn Taymiyyah had this book, well-known book, Asarim al-Maslul. It's a book which essentially justifies or brings the argument, the case, that the blasphemer is to be executed. Tayyib, was he writing this for Muslims in a non-Muslim land or under Muslim authority? If he meant that this is for the individual Muslim to take the law into his own hands and to beat up, to assault and bully a blasphemer, why did he not do it himself? Why did he write this book for the benefit of the rulers and the scholars and the people in authority? Right? Why didn't he go and execute the blasphemer he was writing about himself? It's for the authority in a Muslim country to apply the laws. There is no such law specifically, and this is a Western kind of borrowing, the law of blasphemy. But there's punishment for those who do blaspheme. But we shouldn't. There's no direct, we should say, correlation between that and what we understand in the West. There's a vastly difference, because from our perspective, everything a non-Muslim says is blasphemy, is denial of Allah, denying of the Messenger. What does Allah say? That the sky is ready to split, the mountains to crumble, that they dare say Ar-Rahman has begotten a son, that Allah has begotten a son. That's blasphemous. That's how evil it is in the sight of Allah to say that He has begotten a son. So we don't say therefore every Christian needs to be executed because we disapprove and Allah is offended at their speech. No, that's not how it works. So there's a specific rule set for those who would mock and desecrate the Prophet. And Ibn Taymiyyah wrote this book, voluminous book, in refutation, or rather to make the case that the rulers should apply the punishment, prescribe punishment upon those who would mock, what's another word I'm looking for? Not mock. Anyway, ridicule. Let's say ridicule the messenger. But he never did himself, because the law is not to be taken in to one's own hands. People have brought, for example, some of these takfiri idiots have brought forward the case where there was a blind man whose right-hand possession, should we say, his captive insulted him, and he executed us, something like that. And then this case was taken to the Prophet, and the Prophet allowed it. Again, what did we say at the beginning? The Prophet, when he adjudicates a matter, then it's from revelation anyway. He understood this case. That's one thing. Secondly, as Ibn Taymiyyah explains in this book, the people thought it was a gotcha moment. He explains that the slave master dynamic is one where they can apply in general a set of prescribed punishments, but not the serious corporal punishments. Many of the madhahib say the serious corporal punishments are only, to execute, to cut off the hand of a thief. These are only for the authority. This is what Ibn Taymiyyah says, and I don't know how if I could paste across the Arabic or the English. Let me just read the English, especially because I don't want to, mistranslate or mispronounce any words. But then when he's gone through this point, he says that the second point, the most that can be said, Ibn Taymiyyah said this now in his book about executing those who ridicule the Messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says the second point, the most that can be said about this issue is that it constitutes an act of iftiyat, usurpation of the ruler's authority. That's when a master punishes his slave at the maximum extent in a corporal level. However, the ruler has the discretion to pardon someone who enforces a prescribed punishment without his authorization. Meaning, if you're in a Muslim country, pay attention, a Muslim country, and you own someone, right? The master owns someone under his or her charge, and they punish them beyond what they should have done because this is really for the ruler. Ibn Taymiyyah says it's the ruler's discretion to pardon them for taking the law into their own hands. It's discretion, or to do with some kind of for their having applied the Sharia without authorization of the Muslim Hakim, the Muslim ruler. That's in the land of the Muslims. But as we've shown with Ibn Uthaymeen and the quotes from Allah and His Messenger that he bought, and the Muslims, as the Prophet said, al-Muslimun ala shurutihim, Muslims must fulfill their conditions. This does not apply to you, to me and you and us in non-Muslim countries. We do not have any right to enforce the Sharia in non-Muslim countries because that is not part of our social contract. It is not Dar al-Harb, as we've explained. It's a land, Dar al-Kufr, yes, but not Dar al-Harb. So you must obey the laws of the land as long as they don't oblige you to do something which is itself haram, which is very unlikely, such as you must drink alcohol, or you must eat pork, or you must bow down to this statue. If they were to do that, we would disobey them unless we feed for our lives. And if we went ahead and disobeyed them and were punished on account of it to the point of death, then this would be martyrdom for us. But a person may be excused if he feels, it's not worth it. I'll just, get out, do what I can, and then, I'll bounce, I'll leave this country. Which is why we have hijrah. When you can't practice your religion without being persecuted, that's why you have hijrah. What else does Ibn say? Then Ibn Taymiyyah then moves on. He says the third point, al-wajh al-thalith, even if this act is considered a had punishment, a corporal punishment, it is also a form of executing a harbi. He's talking about now an enemy combatant, making it analogous to the killing of a harbi whose execution is mandated. So, whether this person is a captive or a combatant, it's for the Muslim ruler ordinarily to decide what to do with them. And should the Muslim overstep his or her bounds in delivering corporal punishment, it's at the Muslim ruler's discretion to decide how to deal with this person. That is in the land of a Muslim where these things occur. It's got nothing to do with you and I, Muslims, in the land of disbelief. And it's only because I haven't figured out how to move across a piece of Arabic and English text. Otherwise, I would paste these for you. But anyway, it's in his book, As-Sarim al-Maslul, Ibn Taymiyyah's book, pages 285 to 286. And any evidence they bring, any evidence the ignorami bring to say that, look, the Prophet had this person killed, or he approved of the assassination of Ka'b bin al-Ashraf, who was a poet who would mock him, or he approved, or he didn't disapprove of when the Sahaba executed this enemy of Allah. As we said, they were all enemies of Allah, as attested to by the revelation, because otherwise the Prophet would have said, you kill someone without right. And even then the Prophet was an authority over them. You neither have proof clear up, there's more than a shadow of a doubt that this person in the video did not intend blasphemy. It's not clear what he was going to say because you didn't give the guy a chance. That's one. And secondly, you have no authority. You are not in a position to say someone is a harbi, he's a combatant, that you can execute him or you can assault him. And if you believe that is the case, then put your money where your mouth is, not just today, but every day, and go out and assault every disbeliever in the lands of disbeliefs. Take their wealth and their women if you think this is Dar al-Harb. Otherwise, behave yourself. Really behave yourselves. It's absolutely ridiculous. That's the main gist of what I wanted to say. Let me go back to the comments now. Hopefully I've covered it. I just wanted to mention this in case people think that there was an argument to be made. Again, we're more than capable and more than happy to go through all of the hadith they bring, all of the texts, all of the ayat, and think that this permits us to behave a certain way. These are old doubts that we've dealt with. I've seen this personally, and I'm sure that I wouldn't be the only one who've seen this to its worst conclusion. I remember, subhanAllah, one of the places I visited, there was a brother who would drive me around because I was an honored guest. They considered me like a sheikh, even though I was barely 19. If anything, I was like 20, 21. But because I was given down and everything, they honored me. So they would drive me. They wouldn't let me take an ordinary taxi. They'd say, look, this brother, he kind of works. This is like pre-Uber, but pre-Uber. And so he would drive me around, and eventually I heard he got killed in a shootout. It just so happened that this same brother was a serial killer. I kid you not. He was motivated by his own passion, what he thought was passion for Islam. So he would give dawah in his car while he was driving passengers from a certain part of Eurasia, let's say, without going to details. Whether they were born Muslims or non-Muslims, he would give them dawah. And if they didn't respond, he would execute them. He'd kill them. He'd say, you're either an apostate if they didn't respond positively, or he'd say, you didn't accept my dawah, you've insulted me, you've blasphemed, you've ridiculed, you've rejected the truth that I've conveyed to you. And he would kill them, and he would dispose of their bodies. He even threatened his own father, subhanAllah. He even threatened to murder his own father. He said, you're a kafir, I'm going to kill you one day. And alhamdulillah, his father survived his son's nastiness. Anyway, what happened? Obviously he got found out, and what would you call them, like their version of this country's version of the SWAT, of counter-terrorism police. They stormed. They came to the village, the town where I was staying, and they surrounded the apartment block, and they put on the loudspeakers, everyone get out apart from so and so. I won't say his name, right? We need a name to make it easier. Let's say his name is Ahmed. Everyone apart from Ahmed, get out. So all the people from the apartment block, Muslims, non-Muslims, got out, and he was left there with himself and his unborn child, his wife and their unborn child. And he had a weapon. He had an assault rifle. He started shooting out the windows, and they started shooting a bit back. But of course, they had armored personnel carriers. They had the heavy caliber. They could have blown the whole building, and it's not as if they don't do this ordinarily when they're at war. Anyway, this particular country or nation. So they basically told him. They said they told him, let the woman out. I let your wife out. They were he's showing mercy. Let the woman out. We're just dealing with you. Because it's clear he wasn't giving himself up. They offered him, and he was just shooting at them, and he was refusing to bow down. Takfiri, proper off his head, takfiri jihadi. So the sister didn't know what to do. This poor sister, pregnant. So she phoned some of the sisters from his jama'at, his group of psycho takfiris. And she said, look, I don't mind dying for the sake of Allah. I don't mind standing. She said, I'm prepared to die. she said, I'm prepared to die alongside my husband. But I have a child. But I have an unborn child. He hasn't chosen to be in this situation. He or she. So the sisters from this group, this firqa, they said to her, no, if you die, your child will die as a shaheed or shaheeda alongside you. This is jihad in the sake of Allah. Don't you abandon your husband now. You take those bullets, die, let the kuffar kill you, and you will be joined with your husband and your unborn child in paradise. And of course, she was given terrible advice. She ended up getting shot, her child. Died, as did the brother. I can tell you so many worse things. In fact, I witnessed. Excuse me. Stop it. The point is, it's not for the common people to think that, especially when they're unlearned and haven't studied, not qualified, not competent, to think that they can take the religion of Allah into their own hands, that they could enforce the Sharia by their own hand. All they end up doing is causing people to hate Islam and causing people to throw themselves into destruction. Again, there's no single ayah, and I've seen the stuff that's been said, no single hadith they could bring, no single ayah, except we've already seen them. We know the context of these, we know the tafasir, we know the shuruh, the exegesis, what's the plural of exegesis? We know the commentaries, and we know how our ulama of Ahl Sunnah would deal with these doubts. And as I said to one, directly, I said to one of these, the heads of one of these jama'as, after it was clear that their action had failed, and he finally caught on, Sheikh, in fact one of his sheikhs, Sheikh Abdurrahman Barak, said, there is no jihad for you. This is useless. You should be focusing on dawah, after they'd spent so many years doing what they were doing. So I said to him, Wallahi brother, after all of these hundreds of brothers and sisters and children who've been slaughtered, the flower, lost my voice, the flower of youth. I want to speak louder, but I can't speak louder. I think I've damaged my throat somehow. Anyway, I'll try again. I said, brother, after all of these hundreds of young, handsome young men have lost themselves to death, they've thrown themselves into destruction, and their wives have been left widows, their mothers grieving, their children orphans. How much territory did you capture from the kuffar? Those who call the kuffar, they make the takfir of them and then they fight them. How much? You haven't, wallahi, by Allah, you haven't even taken an inch of territory that you wanted to establish your Sharia over. This is the foolishness of youth. Who do you think were amongst the crowd that killed Uthman from the early Khawarij, the Ghawgha, the rabble? They were like the people who were fighting us now, fighting us people of Sunnah now. Oh, you cowards! Why don't you stand up for the Prophet? Well, how do you think they would addressing? I'm not that we're saying with the level of Uthman, but the mentality is the same. That, oh, look, he's got nepotism. Why doesn't he do this? Why didn't he do that? Why didn't he go on that jihad with the Prophet? Why did he sit back? This is how people are. This is how idiots are, the youth. As I said, don't have to take it from me. Ask any scholar, proper scholar, other than a Barelvi, because they've got some other issues. Is this the way you give dawah? Do you know for certain that this person intended blasphemy when you didn't even let him finish his sentence? It's one thing the brother did what he did, but it's everyone else, the supporters, the fanboys and ignorance and takfiris, thinking that they've got an argument, thinking that they can bring a hadith out of context or quote an ayah out of context. That's what's really worrying with the with the level of ignorance in the Ummah today, such people who behaved in such ways in Muslim countries as repressive and regressive as those Muslim Darul Islam Muslim countries are, they would get flogged for behaving like this, and rightly so, because this is dishonoring the legacy of the Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. They claim they're doing this out of love for the Messenger. This is not piety. This is stupidity. Where do you see the Prophet behaving like this? He would rein it back, and his companions were ordered to rein it back when the Prophet could. For example, famous case, did not Dhul Khuwaisara, did not he insult and blaspheme, where he said, "Idil ya Muhammad, be just, O Muhammad." The Prophet said, "Woe be to you, if I am not just, who will be just?" The Prophet said to him, Umar wanted to take his neck. He said, "Let me take the neck of this kafir, of this hypocrite. Let me take his neck. Let me execute him, kill him on the spot." For what? For blasphemy. This is under the authority of the Messenger. Bear in mind, not in Dar al-Harb. They were under Muslim authority. What did the Prophet say? The Prophet ﷺ said to him, "No, because I do not want that the people, meaning the kuffar, say that my companions kill one another, or that the Muslims kill their companions." In other words, the optics in front of the non-Muslims will be bad. It's bad PR. It's bad public relations if we are going around killing those hypocrites amongst us. And the ulama speak about this, that the hypocrites are generally, the jihad, Ibn al-Qayyim says the jihad against the hypocrites is the best jihad, the most difficult of jihads, because it requires people to be really astute, I'm paraphrasing now, really astute and on their game in terms of knowledge to understand the doubts of the hypocrites and deal with them. But ordinarily they're not killed because it needs to be proven who those hypocrites are. So the Prophet didn't allow a blasphemous hypocrite, munafiq who mocked him, to be killed because of the optics. What were the optics? What are the optics when you assault someone at the dawah stall because you want to infer, or you think, and it could be both options are there, both scenarios. It could be and it could not be that he was mocking our Messenger Sallallahu, and you decide to err on the side of possibility rather than something absolute, and then throw someone around and frighten all the people around you. Again, even if he was, the risk of repeating myself, even if he was a blasphemer, you didn't teach him anything. You didn't teach your audience anything. Or you could say you taught him a lesson, but not really. You didn't take his life. So you threw him around, you frightened him, but you frightened everyone else as well. So what really does this do? I mean, really, this ought not to have to be explained, because for me, it's blindingly obvious that this is not how you do da'wah, and that this is a desecration. This itself is actually almost desecration of the sanctity of carrying the message of the Messenger of Allah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So I'll leave it there. I'll leave it. That's all I wanted to say. Excuse me if I lost it a bit. Had a bit of a wobble. I'll try not to do that again. And some of this stuff we have some video footage of as well, and so maybe we will share that in forthcoming streams. Let me now go through these the chat. If there's any questions, I will address them. Perhaps we need to work up. Yeah, we covered that hadith. Thank you very much. Covered it. We gave the explanation of Ibn Taymiyyah to it. Would it be right to say okay, regards to that Aqidah issue, that's quite involved, and we may cover it, if not this Thursday, the following stream. Yeah, this thing about advising privately, thank you, the brother saying that if this happens in public, it needs to be addressed in public. You can advise someone privately if you want. There's no obligation. There's no obligation to advise those who err in public as regards the religion of Allah and His Messenger, i.e. Islam. There's no obligation to limit their correction to private. In fact, the obligation is to make inkar of the munkar, to censor, to denounce the evil that happened in public, in public. Okay, what else? And by the way, I'll play the video again just in case, because it might not be lost. It might be lost on someone. okay, there's this argument. Let's be honest, how many people have converted to Islam at our hands compared to one before we became the Dawah profession suddenly? This isn't a Shari'i proof of nothing. See, this is an emotional argument. We have emotional arguments and we have Islamic arguments. Those who claim that they are offended for the sake of Allah when someone at a Dawah stall says something like this, and they infer or they assume or presume is probably the right English word, that this is done out of hatred and wanting to troll and mock Muslims, all that to one side, this does not prove anything. The response has to still be, if you're a Muslim and you're claiming this is done, your grievance is Islamic, then your proof for how you react should also be Islamic. So this take this before any judge, or he took 100 shahadas, the Muslim judge, they'll dismiss it. They'll say, what does this prove? Well, yeah, and so what's that prove in the scales of Islam? This doesn't prove anything. You could say there was a prostitute, excuse this kind of maybe it's a bit of an obscene comparison. You can say there's a prostitute and she used to give free Qurans. Do the ends justify the means? And people do this. People will actually make shirk and they will have their dua answered because shaitan, we know this from our religion, shaitan will answer sometimes they will be given what they thought they've prayed for, and shaitan uses to mislead them further. Does that mean that their false worship was justified? You can see so easily how Dajjal will be followed when people rely on emotions rather than the religion. If you want to honor the messenger, follow him, follow his religion, put your emotions aside. As we would often say to the youth who would want to go and do these violent actions, and they say, oh, but you didn't see what the brother saw. You didn't see what the brother saw over in that place, that republic, that wilaya, that whatever. We'd say the emotions of the youth is not a proof in the religion. The emotions of the young boys does not prove anything in the religion. That's not what compels us to act one way or another. We want to know, what do you have to say regards to قال الله قال رسول صلى الله عليه وسلم? What did Allah and His Messenger say about this? That's what will cause us to react to the situation and the statement. What else we got? Yeah, and not all not all issues are the same, right? Someone mentioned, like, if you see a sister being attacked, and even if you might see that you can't take on them, should you let her be attacked? No, this generally manly thing to do would be to help a woman or a child, be they Muslim or non-Muslim, that is, by the way. It's not just Muslim women we want to protect, but a woman who's been assaulted, even if you feel that they're bigger, stronger, more of them than you, most men ordinarily would not just stand back and say, hey, behave yourself. They'd step in, give him a dig here or there. They'd try to protect her, even if it meant him or her or some child or the elderly, even if it meant their own sacrificing their own lives. That's normal. But that's not the same as thinking that because you're bigger and stronger than someone you can bully them around, and if their roles are reversed, that you should put yourself into unnecessary harm. Yeah, I've said what I've said about one. Again, I don't need to respond to emotional outbursts. We brought you proof. We brought you the statements that they thought were on their side. We discussed those hadith. Very summarily, of course, from Ibn Taymiyyah. And I think that's it. Yeah, I'll end the stream. I apologize again for the wobble. That was quite embarrassing. Maybe I'll cut that out. I'll try to cut them out. If there's no other questions, we'll leave it there, and I will see you on Thursday. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.